So we just learned about diameter of a circle, which we know is edge to edge, right? Cutting through our center. We learned about the radius, which starts at our center and goes to our edge, right? So now we're going to learn, well, what is circumference of a circle? Circumference of a circle is going to refer to the distance around your circle. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that green for you, okay? So if I think about circumference, I'm talking about this distance, okay? The green represents the circumference of a circle, okay? Which we're going to say is the distance around the circle, okay? So now let's try and figure out, well, if it's the distance around the circle, how could I find the circumference of a circle? And that's what we're going to do next. So how do we find the circumference of a circle, right? Circumference refers to the distance around our circle, right? So how do we find that? Well, mathematicians have developed a formula that we can use, and that's what we're going to do. That formula is circumference. Oh, let me change that to our pen here. Circumference is equal to pi times my diameter, right? So if I know the diameter of a circle, I can go ahead and I can multiply by pi and I get the circumference, right? We know that pi is always 3.14 when we calculate. It's not the most precise, but that's what we're going to use for our problems here, okay? So this is one formula to find circumference of a circle, but there's also another formula that we can use in the case of, well, what if I don't know the diameter, right? What if I only know the radius? Well, the radius and the diameter have a very special relationship, right? We know that the radius is double the diameter, right? So our second formula is going to be pi times 2 radii, right? Both of these formulas work to find the circumference. You can choose to just use one every single time or the other, as long as you know the relationship between the diameter and the radius. Remember that there are two equations we can use to find the circumference. All right, so let's practice what we just learned, right? We know what the formula is. Now we can go ahead and we can start finding circumference from our given circles here. So looking at our circle, what do we notice? Well, let's write this down. I know that the diameter here is equal to 28 millimeters, okay? If I know the diameter is 28 millimeters, well, what is the circumference? Let's remind ourselves that circumference is equal to pi times diameter, or circumference is equal to pi times 2 radii. Well, let's look at what they gave us here. They gave us the diameter. They said that the diameter was 28 millimeters. So let's use the equation that uses diameter, right? So all I have to do is substitute 28 in for d. So circumference is equal to pi, which we're going to use as 3.14, times my diameter, which is 28 millimeters. If we calculate that through, we get the circumference is equal to 87.92 millimeters. So that is my final answer. All right, our second example here. If you want to pause the video, try this one on your own, and then replay the video to see if you got it correct, I encourage you to do so. All right, so let's get started. If we're looking at our circle here, we have to find the circumference. Let's figure out what we know already. We know that the diameter here is equal to 30 meters. So let's refresh our memory. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter, or circumference is equal to pi times 2 radii. Well, we know that the diameter here is 30 meters, so we're going to go ahead and use the equation that has diameter. Circumference is equal to pi, which is 3.14, times my diameter, which is 30. When I calculate that, I get circumference is equal to 94.2 meters. So that is my final answer. This question asks us to find the circumference again. However, if we look at our circle, they didn't give us the diameter this time. They gave us the radius. They told us that the radius was 5 inches. So let's refresh our memory on the formula for circumference. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter, or circumference is equal to pi times 2 radii. Well, I know that the radius is 5 inches. So let's use the formula with radius, okay? If I plug in what I know that the circumference is equal to 3.14 times 2 times my radius, which is 5. When I calculate that through, I get circumference is equal to 31.4 inches. If you want to try this problem on your own, go ahead and pause the video, try it on your own, then replay to see if you got it correct. Okay, let's get started. This question asks us to find the circumference. What do we know about this circle? Well, I know that the circle has a radius that is equal to 3 meters. So let's refresh our memory. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter, or circumference is equal to pi times 2 radii. Because I know that the circle has a radius of 3 meters, let's go ahead and use the equation that has radius. Circumference is equal to 3.14 times 2 times my radius, which is 3. When I calculate that through, circumference is equal to 18.84 meters. And that is my final answer. Remember that it doesn't matter which formula you use. You can use one or the other depending on the information that's given.